You're listening to a podcast of The Mojo with Steph Renee. Weekdays 10 a.m. till noon on 900 AM WURD.com.
We've got a tremendous talent on the line, friend of both you and I.
Yes.
Who is a star, co-star with Don Cheadle, a leading lady opposite Don Cheadle. How's that?
Yeah. We'll hear shortly.
Yes. In the new movie Miles Ahead. With us on the line, Emayatzy Corinealdi.
Yes, welcome back to WURD.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back with you guys.
We're glad to have you because I'm telling you, you have impressed yourself in the hearts of so many of our listeners. They have enjoyed watching you do what you do and light up the screen the way you do. And now knowing that they have a new opportunity to appreciate your presence on screen and your storytelling ability through your role here in Miles Ahead is going to be a treat.
To hear that, it's really lovely when people, are supportive of you in that way. So I appreciate it.
Well, this is an exciting day. Now, Miles Ahead does not open in Philly for another 2 weeks.
Yeah, so we're priming the pump here for our city.
We're priming the pump. But we want people in New York and LA and all the other cities where it's opening to go support it. Is this an exciting day? Like I saw you in the film at Sundance. I mean, it's been a huge hit all across the festival circuit. What are you excited about today? I'm
excited today about the film finally, really just taking on its sea legs and being out there, in the world, even if it's just in the New York and LA of the world, but it's out, you know what I mean? And so I'm really happy about that. I'm happy about that for Don, because it just means it has meant so much, for him to get from the beginning point of this process into where we are now, which is, about 10 years later. So to have it finally in theaters is just such a huge accomplishment for him. And, for someone of his stature, someone whom we just respect and admire so much just as an actor, as a performer, as a creator, this is just exciting for him. And I am just so glad to have had a small part in his journey of getting this done.
Yes, indeed. Now, I have to mention it because, we've been having lots of vigorous conversation about it here on the airwaves and, of course, in our cultural community. The whole idea of biopics these days is now, I think, probably for the better part of the summer, the whole idea of biopic is going to be viewed through the lens of the controversy around Nina. And so I wonder, have you thought about the idea of, people questioning authenticity, people thinking about the role that casting plays and being able to tell these stories accurately, and in playing Miles Davis's wife in this film, how how being in this time right now and releasing this story is influenced by people's expectations and not necessarily feeling like our Black stories are getting their full breadth of expression.
Well, that was one of the things that I was just so excited about for Don and everyone, involved with the project was that, he had the full support of the family from the beginning. They're the ones who declared that he was going to do it.
Right.
So from there until now, they have just been involved. They've seen the script, they give their thoughts and their ideas, me meeting with Francis and having lunches and, Don meeting with Miles Davis's children and, his nephews. And it has just been this real labor of love. And to see it done in that way, which in turn allows you to also have rights to music and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, when you do something like that, you can only end up with something that is just very authentic and real, and grounded. And it was just beautiful. It's just beautiful when things work out in that way. So for me, having, a front row seat to seeing it done in that way with such a care and a respect being taken towards the family, which is really beautiful, because again, this is my first, I can't even call it a biopic because I don't think that this is what this is, but my first venture into something that's dealing with a real life figure who's iconic. So that in itself has been just a wonderful blessing from my point of view. I think for the family and for Don and for everyone else who will be able to see this. And as it pertains to Nina, I think with one of the biggest things being the argument over Zoe and her casting, I think just as an actor, there's a part of that where it's just we're paid to dream, to believe that we can do it all, that we can be all things and do all things. And in that sense, I think that Zoe is doing her job. She believes that she can do that, and so who are we to tell her that, your beliefs about yourself are wrong? Mm-hmm. So I think in that sense, she's doing her part. She believes that she can do it, and that's what we're paid to do, is to believe. But then you do have the other side of it when you think about someone like Nina Simone, who is iconic, in the same vein as Miles Davis. There's a certain just way of being that she was a particular kind of woman. The way she looked, her music, the way she portrayed her music, it was just all very specific. And so I do understand that side of the argument as well, where you just feel like there should be something that's more aligned with that. I understand, so it's really just a difficult, road to traverse, period. Yeah. It really is. And again, I'm just thankful that with this project, Don and everyone else involved had the full support, and it makes a difference. And Don, from the beginning, he's just always been someone who not only was attracted musically, but has been a fan of Miles Davis, so it just has made a difference from my point of view in seeing what support from all around can do. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Right. Now in Miles Ahead, you play Miles's wife, Frances Taylor. Mm-hmm. And it's a very dynamic role. It's an amazing part. What attracted you to it, and what responsibility did you have in terms of being true to the real Frances Taylor?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing that attracted me to it was Don. He's just always been one of those actors that I wanted to work with if I, was afforded the opportunity. So that was the first thing. And then knowing he was directing as well, I was excited about being a part of his first, technically directorial debut, but with Don, it doesn't feel that way. You don't think of someone like him, and this is his first time. It doesn't feel that way, So that was first. And then I didn't know anything about Frances before this film, So for me, it was exciting to learn about this woman and her contributions, the person that she was before she even allowed Miles into her life. She had achieved so many wonderful things at a time, especially for Black women, when that was just not common, so she was just doing very well for herself. And I was just really curious about, the central question in their relationship from her point of view, of him asking her not even asking her, telling her to give up her career, and her deciding whether or not she was going to do that. Mm-hmm. That was the question for me. This woman who would accomplish so much, had broken down so many barriers for herself. She was one of the original members of West Side Story. She starred in Mr. Wonderful opposite Sammy Davis Jr. She was, taught by Katherine Dunham, So I was extremely curious about that, and I knew that the only way in was for me to speak to her, because she is, thank God, still with us. And so Don put her and I together, and we had, many lunches, many even champagne-filled lunches, talking. And,
those are the best kind.
Those are the best kind. Come on now. Just sharing stories. She was just so wonderfully open and honest, and just willing to just share anything that she thought that I might have needed. And it was really so beautiful, and that was so important to me. That was the number one thing, was that she was supportive of me, in portraying her, which would then allow me to know that I have to, really do my best and step it all the way up to portray this woman, because it's a difficult line to kind of, toe when you are portraying someone who is a real life person, while at the same time trying to serve the creative purposes of the story. Yeah. But again, as a physician because I'm with Don Cheadle, who has done how many, biopics?
Right.
Earl the Goat, Manigault. I mean, everything. So any uncertainties or any questions I had about just that, the difficulty of that, he was able to help me with.
Wow. Well, Emmy, I don't know what your time is like. Can you stay with us for another segment, or?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to find out, like, going from Fort Knox, Kentucky, to L.A. and New York to miles ahead.
Yes, talk about the evolution of the career and how it feeds into the portrayal. So we will do that as we continue with Reelblack Radio here, part of the Mojo on 900 AM WURD. We'll be right back. And we are rejoining you on today's Reelblack Radio with our special guest, Emayatzy Corinealdi, who's on the line with us. And Mike, you had a question in terms of her career evolution that we wanted to get back to.
Things are blowing up. I mean, how does one go from Fort Knox, Kentucky, to being in middle of nowhere, to Hand of God, miles ahead, Roots?
I would say the military in a simple sense. I mean, that's pretty much what happened. And it's so funny, even when I hear Fort Knox in reference to me, because yes, that's where I was born, but my dad was in the Army, and so we moved around so much. And as soon as I was born in Fort Knox, I think it was about 3 months or so later we moved. So it's just always a weird thing when I hear that. It's like, yes, that's where you were born, Emayatzy. I'm like, oh yes.
Oh, where'd you grow up then, or you were an Army brat?
Yes, Jersey and Kansas are home for the most part. Jersey's where I've spent most of my life. And Kansas is where my dad had been stationed and where he retired, and so that's where I still go for Christmas and whatnot. And then I have my older brother and sister in Jersey, nieces and nephews, and that's where my mom was as well. So they're both home equally to me now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that's nice. That Jersey is a close to Philadelphia connection, so we appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, and I'm in South Jersey, too, Burlington. I mean, we right across the bridge.
Indeed.
Very well.
So, Burlington, you heard that. You got to come out April 15th.
That's right.
Support your homegirl, Emayatzy. But when did you decide that this is what you wanted to do and make a goal for it?
It was in high school where the actual decision was made. Prior to that, acting was just something I'd always loved to do. I was involved in summer theater. I mean, young, elementary, middle school, I was always involved in something to do with acting, but it just was for fun. And it wasn't until high school, when we were really making those life decisions. And I said, well, wait a second. Do I really want to be a lawyer? Because I thought that's what I wanted to do. My girlfriend and I, we had our law firm name ready to go, Corinealdi and Sweeney Incorporated. And and then I realized one day, it just hit me, and I said, wait a second. I think I just like the power in the courtroom, the dramatics. If anyone's watching Crime Story, I mean, you get in there and you sell a story. There's so much acting that's involved with that, and I love the suits and everything. I said, you don't want to be a lawyer. You want to play a lawyer. You want to be an actor. And so once I realized that correlation, I had to let my friend know that our law our law firm was going under already before we even got started. He did go on to become a lawyer, so it all worked
out. Well, good.
She did.
It's like both of you stepped into that light of realization and were able to go on and pursue your dreams. That's a big deal.
It really is. It really is. So once that decision was made, then, everything kind of worked towards that. It's like once I do, then everything else kind of made its way. Because I'm really a firm believer that, it's God who gives us these desires that are in our hearts. And from there, he'll make the way for them or not. The path will be made if it's to be. And so that's what happened. It really, I could kind of make the plans, but everything else was kind of set in motion from there. And being in Jersey, I would do a lot of back and forth to New York for classes and off Broadway shows, things like that. And then I decided that it was time to go to L.A. because I knew I really wanted to do film. And though it was the harder move for me, it would have been easier to just, make an official move to New York or something, stay out there for a few years. But I just said, okay, you know what, I've done it out here for a little bit. I I know I really want to do film, so I should just go where the film is. And so that's what I did. I packed up my 95 Nissan Sentra with no AC, drove across the country in June, which was a bad idea. I didn't think that part of it through, but I made it. And yeah, landed here and just kind of have been pounding the pavement ever since.
Yeah, well, I was just talking to Ice Cube recently. He was in town, and he said that all you need is for one person to believe in you, and then opens the doors for the rest of it. I mean, what was the first big break? Who was the first person to believe in you?
Man, there have been so many people along my journey who have believed in me in different ways that have led to the next person believing. But I think just on a grand scale of putting me in a position where I had a different platform where there could be more opportunity, it would have been Ava and I doing Middle of Nowhere, because that film was just one that, just really opened up doors for both of us, you know what I mean? And if not for that opportunity, then, who knows how different the journey would have been, because I do believe that all things happen exactly as they should and when they should. And that was one where she and I, it was just such a lovely pairing, the two of us. We're still, as you guys know, still really good friends now. And so that would have to be one in terms of a larger scale of career. But there have been so many people who have helped me along my way from the beginning, literally from the first person that I stayed with here, who was just so hospitable and all of that. I believe that there are many, many people along the way on the journey that help to get you to where you're going.
Well, I mean, I'm just excited that we are getting ready to see you illuminated on the screen yet again, and understand that this is part of the journey that we get a chance to participate in, that we get a chance to pay into, that we get a chance to buy into with our hearts, in terms of the telling of this story, and someone that we wanted to see illuminated on the screen for a very long time. So this Miles Davis story and all of the other people that loved him and supported him through his career evolution, and we get to take that journey with you as well.
And let me just add to that. I want to thank you guys so much for this, because you guys have always been, from the beginning of everything with Middle of Nowhere, so supportive of Ava, of myself, of all of the efforts involved in the kind of work that we're trying to do. You guys have always been there every step of the way, and it's so lovely and it's so appreciated. And I just can't thank you enough for it. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Well, you make it so easy. I mean, just every single time I see your name in a credit of a movie, I know that I'm in for something special.
Yes.
So I can't. What's next for you after Miles Ahead?
Well, next I have a film called The Invitation that'll be out next week, actually, April 8th. That one comes out. And that's also directed by a woman director, which is so exciting for me. Her name is Karen Kusama.
Go
so
for
that's
it.
April 8th. And then Roots is coming out May 30th. Something else I'm really, really excited about. And then I'm going into season 2 of production on Hand of God, which is on Amazon.
Yes.
Well,
this is a busy time for you then.
Definitely. So what?
Yeah.
I mean, we might not have May 30th is right around the corner. I mean, what can we expect from Roots? So there's so much talk about it.
Oh my gosh. Taking the original and the perfection they achieved with that, and they added, at this point, they'd added more historical truth to it, more historical elements to it. Something as simple as Kunta Kinte being from the Gambia, they actually shot the whole first night in South Africa. Things like that just add a level of realism to it. It really is just a different, a newer reboot of the same thing that worked so wonderfully well the first time around. It's something that I really believe is going to touch all of the newer generation who never saw the original Roots. My nieces and nephews, some of them who hadn't seen it, who upon seeing it don't feel that it doesn't have the same effect on them as it did when it first came out. So I'm really looking forward to it for that reason, so that we can continue this conversation that's happening that really shouldn't even be happening. You know, we have this whole Black Lives Matter movement happening. The fact that we need that right now, the fact that that is here, you know, so there's just so many elements from slavery period that still persist. So I hope that from this being out, that we can have just more of an enlightened conversation about it.
Excellent. Well, we're definitely looking forward to all the reboots and in the theater pieces and on our small screen pieces that we get a chance to enjoy you. And thank you for making yourself available for these conversations on our airwaves and keeping our audience so in tune with what you're up to. And we wish you much continued success.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Emmy. We love you.
All right.
And again, Emayatzy Corinealdi playing Frances Taylor, real life Frances Taylor,
yes,
in a biopic that I can legitimately say is done right. But it's not a traditional biopic, but it's done in the spirit that everybody's gonna love. And it's out now in New York and LA, and it comes to Philly April 15th. Reelblack is doing a field trip to go support it on April 16th. And
nice.
And this is just gonna be fantastic. So
absolutely.
All right.
And
thank you guys.
Thank you
yes,
again.
Indeed.
You've been listening to a podcast of The Mojo with Steph Renee. Weekdays, 10 a.m. till noon. Follow us on your favorite social media like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for up-to-the-minute information at 900 AM WURD.